Hello, everyone, and welcome to IBSI's weekly forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. I am your host, Joshua Washington, the executive director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. And usually I'm joined by my lovely co-host. Today I am all alone. Our Speakers Bureau chief and board member, Olga Washington, she is overseas at the moment, doing some very related work. She'll tell us more, or at least some, about that next week. But today you just have me. I hope that is okay with all of you. We have some very pertinent things to get into today, including an article that was just released from our Substack page. But before we do that, first of all, that theme song you heard is called "The First 7 Miles" by Randy Sandoli. It's on his entire album called Simcha. If you like the theme song that you hear on this, go check out Simcha. It's on all streaming platforms. Support Randy Sandoli and book him. He has a live jazz band and they perform all over the place. Also, visit our website, IBSI.org. If this is your first time tuning in to our forum, check out our website, learn more about IBSI, what we do, and why we do it. You can also go to our Substack, ibsi.substack.com, to check out our Africa Israel Weekly newsletter. If you are a subscriber and you're a free subscriber, upgrade to paid subscribers. Especially now, we have a lot of paid content out, a lot of paid articles. And I've been saying for a while now that we're going to get back on our podcast. I have a interview tomorrow, a podcast interview, and I have several others over these next few weeks that will be up on our Substack page, but it'll all be paid content. So if you want to hear listen to our podcast, the JW Show, you're going to have to upgrade to paid subscriber to do that. Also, become a legacy builder. Become a legacy builder with IBSI. A legacy builder is someone who gives monthly to help fund the work that we do. People have given as little as $10 a month to start off with, and now they give $50, $100, $250 a month. You do what you can. And you increase from there. But it's our monthly donations that really help IBSI go. Go to ibsi.org/donate, and you will be able to do that. We would greatly appreciate that, especially as we are closing out this as we are in the second half of the year, which is crazy. And then also visit our merchandise store. Visit our merch store. We have t-shirts like this. We have our Iron Lion Zion t-shirts. We have different their mugs and really cool things that you can get. You can buy and not only support IBSI, but have something to show for it as well. So go to ibsi.org and you'll be able to see the merchandise that we have on our site. All right. Announcements. Our first Africa Jewish Alliance Summit. African Jewish Alliance Summit. We talked about it last week. If you remember, for those who were here last week, Olga and I were hosting from Washington, D.C., and we had a beautiful backdrop. I mean, it was gorgeous. And we were talking about the summit, but the summit had not started yet. The summit was only going to start that next morning. So I said that I would give you guys an update afterwards. The update is that it went wonderfully. We finally got to meet a lot of the partners in person for the first time. Charles Jacobs, who's, if you're looking at this, you see the man almost in the center with the red tie. We've known him for years. We've worked with him for years, but this was my and my wife's first time, or I think both of our first time seeing him face to face and talking to him face to face. He is a stalwart in this cause for freeing African slaves, fighting against slavery and jihad on the African continent specifically. As you can see, that picture is side by side, an Israeli hostage, Noah, who was freed, and Leah Sharibu, who was stolen, who was taken by Boko Haram, who's still not freed in Nigeria. And so it was wonderful. We got to talk to a couple of senators and Congress people and explain to them what was going on. You know, there are things that we wish we could have had more private audiences with different leaders. But in terms of the first one, it went very well. We finally got to meet our other partners, former slaves, and activists as well. Like you saw in that first group picture, Simon Deng. Some of you guys know who he is already. from his writings. He's done a few events with IBSI now. It was good to see him again. It was a great event. We had a really great time with both Africans, Jews, African Christians, and African Muslims in our group, and former slaves and other people who are very passionate about this, making noise on Capitol Hill, and trying to get our leaders to adopt a policy that puts pressure on countries like Nigeria and Sudan and Mauritania, Algeria, and Libya, for their treatment of Africans in those countries for the slavery. And it's not limited to those countries, but those are the top 5 that AJA is focusing on now. And it went well. So thank you all for your prayers, and thank you for your support in supporting AJA and supporting us as we do that important work. Okay. Also, Israel Conference in Atlanta, Pastor Matrilla Hall. We were letting you guys know about that. That is coming up. That is going to be July the 27th. If you want to know more about that, you can email info@faith2graceministries.org, and register for that. There's a number there that you can call if you're in the Atlanta area or in the Carolina area or just not too far away from Atlanta. You should join this leadership conference. Pastor Matrilla Hall is incredible. She's amazing. She's also one of our IBSI pastors. She's very active, and it would really be great for you to go. Speaking of which, good evening. Good evening, Pastor Matrilla. It is good to see you on here today. And thank you for being such a big supporter of IBSI. So yes, y'all, go to info@faith2graceministries.org and register. Go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. We have, so there's a couple of things, and the first part of the program that I want to talk about actually kind of ties into an article that was just released from our Substack page. An article that I penned this week for Africa Israel Weekly. This one is a premium article, so if you want to read it, check it out. It's not that one. That one is the one that's linked, though, to the article, Psychological Compromise, Radical Islam, Faux Human Rights Groups, and Their Deadly Effect on the West. That's the article from a few weeks ago. That is, I brought that article back in this new article, but this article, I can't even remember what I decided to title it now. This article it touches on that, and it goes a little bit deeper, just going into like the looming threat of and the deadly effect of us deferring truth. And so you can check that out. That article is called "Terrorism in Israel and at Our Front Door." And the subtitle is "Why Deferring the Truth is Going to Kill Us." And I try to be as forthright as possible in that, because that's exactly what is going on in the article. I lay out a couple of different examples of truth being deferred because it's comfortable at the time, right? Organizations who are supposed to be championing the truth, who skirt it because of timing, right? Who skirt the truth because, well, right now it's going to make us look really bad to say X, so we're not going to say X. Matter of fact, not only are we not going to say X, anyone who says X, we're going to come after them, and we're going to keep doing that until it's not a problem anymore to say it, and then we'll go back to saying it. Only problem is, when it comes to the truth, it's pretty much almost always when it's the least convenient time to say it. That's usually the time when you need to say it. That's right. That's why people say truth hurts. It's because usually the truth has to be said when it's not. People don't want to hear it. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the whole article because you can read it again. You could subscribe, become a paid subscriber. But one thing I do want to touch on today is about what we need to talk about. And ladies and gentlemen, that is, there is an article, and I linked this article in the, in our premium, but I'll talk about it. I don't know why I just lost it all of a sudden. I apologize, you guys. Here we go. But there's an article that's gone out from VOA News called "Islamic State Looks to U.S. Southern Border," right? And there's evidence. Sorry, evidence mounts Islamic State is looking to the U.S. southern border, right? And this is something that it's an article that just came out June 26th. Okay, so just a few days ago this year, and it kind of highlights how U.S. intelligence and security officials are like increasing their focus and looking at the country's southern border, and they're worried about the constant flow of migrants and everything, which is an issue that's been talked about in the U.S. beyond jihadism or anything. It's just that's been a topic, right? It's one of the topics that of the during the presidential elections right now, and that's what people one of the issues that people are very passionate about. And one of the things that one of the things that is being said is that officials are starting to actually articulate that there are radicals who are living at our southern border from other countries who are coming over, right? And so they talk about background checks and the concerns. One of the things the article says is while the initial background checks came up clean, U.S. law enforcement subsequently turned up information indicating potential ties to the Islamic State group known as ICE or ISIS. And then it says, this is a quote from one of the officials: "It is not lost on us that the people who killed over 150 Russians in that theater were from the same part of the world." This guy's from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And he's talking about the same part of the world that other terrorist attacks are. Terrorism happens on a regular basis. 8 men from Tajikistan entered the U.S. Through Mexico. And the thing is, that article came up and, I cited that and I cited some others from 2017 and some studies that even cite things going back to the 80s. And this is the problem right now with what's happening. And the problem right now with what's happening is that no matter how much our officials and media people, leaders can pretend like this is just a new thing that's popped up and oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Suddenly we're aware of these potential terrorists who are coming over our border from other countries, funneling through Latin America, coming up the U.S. border. The thing that is disappointing about it and very suspect and very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's deadly for us is that this has been happening for decades. And the people who are supposed to be sounding the alarm about this, amplifying this, not only did they not say anything, but they went so far as to attack anyone who said things like, well, if we just have a bunch of undocumented immigrants coming through the Mexico border, and we know, or at least there have been reports and analysis and studies that terrorist groups like Hezbollah has cells all over the globe, including Latin America, so which means Mexico as well, then it stands to reason that at least some of those undocumented immigrants that are crossing the border are members of Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization that's based in Lebanon, but has tentacles literally all over the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that does terrorist training, that traffics drugs and narcotics, and engages in counterfeiting. It's a ginormous, like I said, multi-billion-dollar, essentially business, right? It's a terrorist business, but it's essentially a multi-million-dollar enterprise. People who brought those things up, from some people they were called xenophobic and all those things, which depending on your politics, that can be expected. But then what happened was, and I talk about this in the article, there are leaders who back then when people were saying, no, you have terrorist workers, terrorist officials, terrorist groups from other countries in Mexico coming into the US, organizations that were supposed to be talking about this kind of stuff, because these terrorists, no doubt, pretty much always are anti-West, anti-America, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-freedom. These are the same people who enslave Africans. They trade human beings. The slave trade continues because primarily of the Arabs and the Arab terrorists and the Arab jihadists, all that stuff. And these people are coming into Mexico and crossing our border, along with people from Mexico, along with people who are trying to just get a job. But that was the concern always, and there was a lot of gaslighting when at the moments when there really should not have been. Hezbollah has been in Latin America since the 1980s. Hezbollah officially was founded in 1985, but before they were officially founded, they were still an existing group, and they've been in Latin America, as far as our intelligence and researchers know, at least since 1982. So without a doubt, and there's already evidence to show this as well, but without a doubt, Hezbollah is in the United States. Okay, so now, after decades of not just Hezbollah but other terrorist groups who have funneled through Latin America, now after all these organizations are in the United States already, in many parts of Africa, on the African continent. I remember in South Africa, Reverend Kenneth Mishwe, who was the president of the African Christian Democratic Party, he's been in parliament for over 30 years, happens to be my father-in-law as well. We talked about this. He said, no, it's same thing in South Africa, is that there are these different, and Olga will speak more to this too, because I want her to talk about this next week. In South Africa, you have, just like in America, you have a mixture of different things. You have, Arabs who live in South Africa who are just, doing their day-to-day lives and they're fine. But you have an enclave of different ethnicities of people, Pakistanis, specifically, but others, who they are linked to terrorist organizations. And they are there in South Africa, just living their lives, having children, doing all that stuff, waiting for the signal to strike. And if that sounds alarmist to you, so first of all, let's go back to the United States. If that sounds alarmist to you, we've already seen signs of that in the U.S. right now. Look at the stuff that we're seeing now that's scaring us. A lot of you, especially the people who have a lot of followers, they'll post about different things. Canary Mission posts about different things, right? One of the things, we shared it lots of times. On October the 8th, 2023, there was a massive celebratory, gathering in New York. I don't say protest because they weren't against it. They were for it. They were celebrating what Hamas did on October 7th. And not only were they celebrating, they knew exactly what happened. A girl stood up and said, early morning, our resistance came and flew into Tel Aviv and da-da-da with paragliders, and they attacked. And everyone was like, woo, woo, woo. And then she said, and they also fired, since yesterday, 5,000 rockets into Israel. And then started chanting free, free Palestine, globalized intifada, all that stuff. And that was October 8th, and that was freaky to people, right? Which, that already, you look back to 2021 where people were saying in London, kill the Jews, rape their daughters, and Jews were being beaten up in the streets then. It was happening again here, but at a different level. And I think sometimes we have short-term memory. We forget that, no, this is building up, you guys. This is building up, building up, building up. So there's already signs of it. Now there have been reports of, and videos and pictures taken of anti-Israel, right? Because I put that in quotation marks because they're not just anti-Israel, they're anti a lot of stuff. Protesters waving the Hezbollah flag next to the Palestinian flag. See, the mask is coming off more and more because, right, with the Palestinian flag, you could at least say, no, this is about the people. It's about the people. You're waving a Hezbollah flag. You're not waving a Lebanese flag, right? You're not waving the flag with the cedar tree. No, you're waving a flag for the terrorist organization in Lebanon, which is not the same flag as the country. You are making a very loud and clear statement. Someone just commented on LinkedIn. I remember a man on a megaphone in Philadelphia on October 8th describing in detail with cheers and so on. If you happen to have video of that, please send it to us because we have video of the New York one. We have video of the one in the Bay Area, like the day after October 7th. These people were cheering. They were celebrating. These aren't all just brainwashed young kids who don't know what they're doing. Yes, some of them are. But they are getting their marching orders from somebody. Who do you think is doing it? Why do you think? So now let's just use our brains here. If for the past at least 40 years, 40 plus years, we've had terrorist organizations like Hezbollah making its way into the United States through Mexico for 40 years, over 40 years at least, right? That we know of, at least 40 years. If that's happening, what do you think they're doing in the US? Right? And so when we talk about issues of border security, and it's become unfortunately a super hyper politicized thing, but the fact of the matter is every country has to have strong border security or they're not going to be a country for very long. That's just the truth. That's not a Republican talking point. That's just the truth of the matter. You can't have open borders. You can't be soft on immigration. You You can't have millions of undocumented people flooding into a country and go, "Oh, no person is illegal." That's an empty platitude that is going to kill our country because not everyone is coming to America or any country seeking to better themselves. Some people are coming. Some people are coming as a way to subvert the country, right? And these people are playing the long game. They're playing the long game. One just a few years ago, I think it was Ilhan Omar's vacated seat when she left city council in now wow I want to say, why is it escaping me now? Minnesota, sorry, Minneapolis, I believe, and her replacement was another Somalian, because there's a massive Somali Muslim community in Minneapolis, just like there's a big Liberian community there, which we'll get into that maybe at a different time. There's tension between two communities for different reasons. The person who replaced her on the city council, he gave his acceptance speech completely and totally in Arabic. Not one English word spoken. Yeah, you live in a predominantly Arab, predominantly Mexican, and predominantly Chinese, whatever, and that's fine. The only problem is you're still elected in the United States of America, where the primary language is English. And then just recently, Ilhan Omar went back to her home city, and again, it was an event. The entire speech all in Arabic. So again, that's the mindset, right? There are people who come here to integrate and to have a better life, and that is a good thing, right? And there are other people who come here who have no interest in at all in being a part of society in any way. And not only that, but their intentions are, we're patient. We'll play the long game, right? Bit by bit, generation by generation, we will subvert and subvert. And it's something that was mentioned in Washington, D.C. at the summit. For Americans especially, people in the West, but especially for Americans, we are being prepped and primed and groomed to be persecuted. And when I heard that, I was reminded of an article that I wrote. That's the one that our producer showed, called "Psychological Compromise." It was written a few months ago, but I would still encourage you to go back and read it. If you read our latest article, you'll see this. But it's called "Psychological Compromise: Radical Islam, Faux Human Rights Groups, and Their Deadly Effect on the West." And I start off by talking about my perspective of 9/11. I was 10 years old when 9/11 happened. And then the years that followed it, I saw a culture shift, and just processing it as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, not really knowing how to place it because I was young. I didn't know what gaslighting meant. I didn't know it, but I just saw things that just seemed off to me. And one of those things that seemed off to me was it seemed to me, and looking back, it was absolutely correct. And I talked about this before. It seemed to me that the immediate response, the immediate reaction when a tragedy is committed by someone who's Muslim, the immediate reaction is Islam is a religion of peace. Islam is a religion of peace. I know I can't say that. Islam is a religion of peace, and you guys don't use this to spread hatred against Muslims. Which for me, let's not spread hatred for an entire. Yeah, I was like absolutely, but even as a kid, I was like that just doesn't feel right because we don't do that with anyone else. I've never. That was my first time seeing that. George Bush, 6 days after 9/11, gave a speech at the Islamic Center in D.C. saying Islam is a religion of peace and saying, we stand with our Muslim American brothers and sisters, and we don't want this to be an excuse for us to come out and attack and da da da. And I was like, that's fun. I mean, honestly, okay, I guess, but again, we're still kind of reeling. We still kind of don't know what happened. It hasn't even been a whole week yet. People are mourning. People are still alive under the rubble as he was speaking then. And who was standing right behind him was the director of CARE, the Council of Arab Islamic Relations. That same director of CARE, as some of you already know, the same director of CARE, Nihad Awad, just a couple of weeks after October 7th, said that was a victory. He saw it as a victory for Hamas. He also celebrated what Hamas did to Israel on October 7th. So, and this is what I bring up in the latest article, and I want to talk about this now. You guys, sometimes speaking up, telling the truth, or simply, it doesn't even always have to be the truth. It could just be calling out something that you see, even if you're not sure where it's headed or where it leads or whatever. Sometimes, what makes it difficult is that sometimes you're not always vindicated when you want to be. For the prophet Isaiah, his vindication came long after he died. The prophet Isaiah was the one who prophesied about Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar coming, but we were still far off from that. It didn't happen until Jeremiah's time, and it happened while Jeremiah was alive still. So Isaiah died almost like, I want to say a heretic, but without all this stuff happening, people were kind of like, oh, what Isaiah was always just. He died in many people's minds a false prophet. The challenge with telling the truth is that you may not always get the results of the truth right away. Whereas a lie is appealing to the heart and the flesh. And the way deception works is that it takes pieces of the truth and it presents something that makes complete sense to you. And it's expedient, it's now, and a lot of times early on, it puts the truth tellers to shame because there's a lot more on their side. They've got a lot more people. They got a lot more emotion, and they can point to things that are true. The only problem is time always bears witness to the truth. And so if you are committed to speaking out and you are committed to the truth, then you'll say something even though you know that you'll get lambasted for it for an indefinite amount of time, because you know that at some point what you said will come to pass. And you hope that some people were listening and responded and did something about it, and you could change the course of some people's lives, right? That's the whole point. The problem is we don't have enough people who are committed to the truth. They're committed to whatever's expedient for them. So we have been psychologically compromised over decades, right? By the time I'm 10 years old, 9/11 happens. It was already happening for a while, right? Since before I was born, but this was the big turning point. This was the marketing genius, or this was, how is it that I can belong to a people who enacted one of the deadliest attacks in American history on American soil, and still get that same culture and society to be so soft on me and my people that they're too afraid to call out things that are right in front of their face. And I brought up the San Bernardino shooting, right? There was a tragic shooting. A Muslim couple shot up a hotel, and people who were interviewed afterwards, their neighbor, their mailman, were saying, yeah, they were doing some pretty suspicious things. I mean, I was just like, whoo. Well, why didn't you say anything? Well, I wasn't gonna. I didn't want to say anything. Are you kidding me? The Muslims, I'm not gonna say anything. No, 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 no. Okay, so you didn't want to say something that was happening right in front of your face because the couple was a Muslim. Turned out they were doing something. A lot of people died because of it. So people died, yes, because of this couple, but also because of the people who saw the suspicious activities. The mailman who said, I would deliver up to 12 packages in a day for them sometimes. And I knew something was up, but I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to be called an Islamophobe. I didn't want the neighbor across the street. Yeah, I would see these boxes and boxes every day stacking up in their house. And it was like, they weren't moving in. They've been living there for a while. So what are they doing? There's got to be some, but yeah, can you imagine if I called the cops and they weren't doing what I thought they were doing? And then I'm just all over the news for being a bigot. And I just didn't want to do that. Well, it turned out they were actually doing something nefarious and they killed people, right? So people died because people were silent. That was the real reason. You have to be willing to fall on your sword so that people can have a chance at the truth, right? They can have a chance at seeing what's going on. If you're not willing to, there's that's okay, but you probably shouldn't be in the profession or in the business of activism, right? Justice. That's just probably should not be your your profession of choice. So check out the article again. Become a paid subscriber so you can check it out, you guys. Um, we are headed for some stuff. October 7th definitely galvanized Hezbollah, which is why Hezbollah is at war with Israel to the north right now. At Israel's northern border, over 20,000 Israelis have been displaced because of Hezbollah. Northern Israel is on fire. Hezbollah is much more equipped, much more battle hardened than Hamas, much more professional. Israel right now is on the brink of a full-out war with Hamas. We have Israeli friends, we have Jewish friends who are praying that doesn't happen and that they don't have to send their kids off to war. Where, yeah, man, it's yeah. So it's getting real, you guys. It's getting real, and so that's why. So again, if what Hamas did to Israel on October 7th excited Hezbollah enough to get involved in this war from Lebanon. And now you're seeing in the US Hezbollah flags. All that is just a test to see how we're going to respond to that. Is the general public going to push back? Are we going to stay silent? How silent? How much can we get away with? It's only, and this is not a prediction or a prophecy. It's just as sure as gravity, as sure as if I throw this bag of crayons that my son's left here up, it's going to come down. That's gravity. As sure as that is going to happen, it is only a matter of time before the United States experiences another September 11th or equivalent of October 7th in Israel. It's only a matter of time. How can there not be? We've had millions of undocumented immigrants into our country over the past couple of decades. We know that there are terror cells in Latin America. We know that they've made their way into the US. We also know that there are little signs of it here and there. It is only a matter of time, ladies and gentlemen. We are at that point. One of the things that is going to keep us in that season is, first and foremost, when it comes to our minds, not. So remember, I said our friend in DC said that Americans are being groomed just to be persecuted. That's what the psychological compromise is for, right? It's so that I can rule over you. I want you to be so afraid to say anything bad about me. I want you to be so afraid about saying anything against my culture, my religion, because I want to rule. That makes you easier to rule over. That makes you easier to be a slave. We have to get our minds right, you guys. This is, again, it's not alarmist. This is not conspiracy. It's not like, oh, where'd you got that? You talked to whatever. This no. These are, and I link. You can check it out. I linked George Washington University studies, Harvard studies, Department of Homeland Security studies. These are people whose job it is to examine these things. It's not like a hidden thing. It's not like it's in dispute whether or not there are terror cells in Latin America. This has been the truth since we've known this for years. And we know that they're in the U.S. There are terror cells representing every terrorist group in New York. I mean, in America, including Hamas. So, I mean, are they just going to chill here and be cool? I mean, eventually something's going to happen. And so for those who've decided to be quiet on it, for those who decided to not say anything, the article specifically names Jonathan Greenblatt and the Anti-Defamation League because he recently wrote an article called the bigotry of no expectations, and the article is about how we need to start treating Hamas like we treat everyone else. Everyone is too soft on Hamas just because they're Arab and da da da. Which everything he said in the article was, I mean, on point. There's nothing wrong with that. The only problem is, and we talked about it before, the ADL has peddled in so much DEI, anti-racism type of like black people can do no wrong, and racism is really just a white thing against people of color. Da, 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 that they have subscribed very, very aggressively to that ideology for a long time. The border crisis, like I was just describing, there's an article that was published, and I linked that article from the ADL. Really just straight up calling it a conspiracy theory, calling the people who are saying what I'm saying right now conspiracy theorists, that there are Muslim terrorists at the border. That's just an anti-Mexican conspiracy theory that's set up to all that stuff. Literally running interference for this stuff. Now that it affects Israel and that it's affecting Jews across the country, now it's no, we need to hold Hamas to the same standard. Yeah, we do need to hold them to the same standard. The problem is you weren't saying that when it needed to be said. You were coming after people who were saying those things. And this isn't just about the ADL. This is what running from the truth does, right? There are people who were all for BLM, who are rah-rah BLM from the beginning. Today even, there are still people who are in the pro-Israel space who say, we supported black people with BLM and they're not coming to our defense with Israel. That's because BLM was a sham from the beginning. There was nothing of substance to really support. And we kept trying to tell you that, right? And not just IBSI. There were lots of other black leaders in the NAACP Oakland, California chapter. We have our partner, Pastor Corey Brooks in Chicago. We have Star Parker and her foundation. You have Pastor Matrilla Hall. There were leaders, pastors all over the country who were saying, no, BLM is not only are they off on the Israel thing, they don't represent us. The issues that Black Lives Matter says are the top issues are not even on the list for us. And we were attacked. Those black people who are saying that were attacked by other non-black people. My article, the latest article in our Substack, opens up with an exchange that we had. I didn't list the person's name, but this person 3 or 4 years ago messaged the IBSI page. We had a conversation back and forth. And how it went quickly from what can I do? I want to march to us telling her we don't know. Here are organizations you can support. Here are organizations who are trying to rebuild after the riots that BLM left behind it. Oh, I didn't know you guys were a right-wing organization. Like literally it just flipped to that, right? That happened. And some of you were just duped, but there were a lot of people who weren't duped. They just saw that as a trend that they needed to follow. They said, you know what? This does sound like crap. I know this is BS. I know that it's not open season on Black. I know that I know and all this other stuff. And some of those people were even aware of the anti-Jewish rhetoric coming from some BLM leaders. Yes, we're aware of that, but it's not our turn right now. So first of all, infantilizing, right? Completely patronizing of Black people. So that was already gross. But secondly, so you supported something knowing it was crap, knowing it was full of crap, but it was more comfortable for you to do so in that moment because everyone else was doing it. That's peer. Hello, I thought some of us grew up in the 90s where peer pressure was like almost every other episode for sitcoms, right? What do you do when all your friends want to do something? You doesn't mean you have to do it, right? But no, that's what everyone did. Well, everyone to the point where there were pro-Israel organizations that invited BLM leaders to their events to speak. And IBSI saw all that and we were like, oh, okay, if that's what you want to do, I wouldn't advise that. So now, because for you guys, remember 2023 when the Chicago chapter of BLM, I wish I put the graphic up here, did the whole paraglider graphic, We Stand with Palestine, and it was a graphic of a paraglider that was symbolizing the paragliders that that glided into the Nova Festival and shot and killed a bunch of festival goers in Israel, right? A bunch of Israelis and other foreign nationals, and where they kidnapped a bunch of people too. And everyone was like, oh, how could they do this to us? Oh my goodness, I just don't understand. We were there, we marched with them, and how could, and that. Not only was IBSI like, of course they're gonna do this. Our memory is so short term. They did a very similar thing in 2021, you guys. So that's it. I stand with Palestine. That was BLM Chicago. That is all. That is it. That's what they said. They did very similar things in 2021. They had signs of when Hamas was raining down rockets on Israel in 2021 during that war. BLM was publicly going, yep, we love that. Good job. They were doing that we wrote an article then called We Told You, because we were saying that they were doing stuff before 2021. We knew. It's not that we didn't know the truth. It's that the truth was too inconvenient for us. Now, in 2024, when it's a little bit more, because not just IBSI and not just other organizations, but Black leaders, it's becoming more of a wave now. The founders of BLM were embezzling tons of money, and right, things have kind of come crashing down. So Black Lives Matter is not at the prominence that they used to be. Now people are coming out saying, oh, BLM is a sham of an organization. Thanks a lot. Now it's not, the damage has been way done. And now you want to say, oh, BLM is, yeah, remember when we said that exact same thing about 8 years ago, and you told us that we need to stay out of it? Us Black people, you white person, I'm just being honest, right? You told us that we know what we were talking about. So now, and it's not even about us. I'm not saying we didn't want an apology. What I'm saying is you skirted the truth because it suited you. And now you're running back to the truth because it's biting you in the butt. Problem is, it's too late. By the time we decide to run back to the truth because it's convenient, once the truth is convenient, then it's not really necessary anymore. The damage has been done from the lies. So let me pause for a second. I went longer than I was planning on going. Let's take a quick commercial break. I want to show you, we want to show you again the recap from this week's Truth to Power Live with our CEO and founder, Pastor Dumisani Washington. You guys check out this clip, and let's keep it going.
Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. Our senior staff at IBSI just returned from Washington, D.C. at the first African Jewish Alliance Summit there in D.C. to both raise awareness and affect policy when it comes to religious freedom and the radical extremism that is destroying so many lives in both Africa and the Middle Eastern region. So these African nationals who are part of the African Jewish Alliance, they are taking great risk. It's not just maybe other Muslims who don't want to speak, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to the West, other Christians and Jews will be silent on this issue for the sake of political correctness. People are dying so that other people don't feel uncomfortable about sharing uncomfortable things. But because that's not politically correct, because that's going to get them labeled as quote unquote Islamophobe, one of the most stupid words in the English language, Islamophobe is hurled at anyone who criticizes the extremism that we're discussing right now. There are Muslims who are not only not Islamophobe, they are concerned about what they are seeing in the destruction of other religious communities at the hands of those who consider themselves supremacists in that sense, and that everyone must bow down to Islam. There are Muslims who are saying, no, we don't subscribe to that. They are also called Islamophobes. So there's a great deal of courage that it takes for many of these in this African Jewish Alliance, particularly those that are coming from African Muslim backgrounds, for someone to be silent on the fact that it is a Muslim Brotherhood inspired program that's happening on U.S. college campuses that are coming for Jewish students, whether they're pro-Israel or not, that are attacking Jews in the streets of New York and L.A. For someone to point that out and say, this is a jihadist mindset, they're actually doing what they said they want to do, which is globalize the intifada. For someone to stand up and say that and call it what it is, and then be attacked by those who don't want to say anything and now are attacking those who are actually saying something. The ones who are attacking those who are calling it out are cowards. It would be better for those who are trying to criticize those who are being brave to just shut up. If you don't like what they're saying, keep it pushing, keep it scrolling. For you to not only be silent about what's going on our campuses and on our streets, or in Sudan, or in Nigeria, or in Mauritania, or in Libya, and so on and so forth, because it's the same mentality, jihadism. For you to choose to be silent about it, fine. But for that same person who doesn't want to discuss it, to then attack those who are willing to discuss it, those who are willing to put their own lives on the line, or at the very least their reputations on the line, and stand up and speak the truth, then the people attacking them are cowards. You don't have the courage to say anything, fine, but now you're going to muster up fake courage to attack the people who are actually trying to bring some sort of justice, peace, religious freedom. That person's a coward. I'm not going to call out the Islamic extremism, but I'm going to attack those who are willing to call it out, because I'm afraid they're making me look bad. Therefore, let me attack them. Not let me attack the radicals. Let me attack them. Those people are cowards, and they are enabling. Those are the ones that are actually helping the jihadism move forward.
Truth to Power Live with Jimmy Sunny Washington.
So those are live every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. You guys join. It's just started a few weeks ago. Radio show Truth to Power Live, and it's not, like I said, the topics that our CEO and founder covers are they go throughout. For those who follow our CEO and founder, he talks about a lot of things. So this is a platform for him to really break down some things. But it still happens that what we're talking about here and now really converge, because these are very converging issues. We're in very pressing times right now. So I want to keep pushing forward a little bit. Talk about one more thing here. Unfortunately, we found out in Nigeria, and this is on africanews.com, but africanews.com, but you can find other sources as well. There were suicide bombers in northeastern Nigeria that killed at least 18 people this past Saturday, so June 29th. There were multiple ones. The first suicide bomber detonated explosive device during a marriage celebration at about 3 p.m. And then minutes later, another blast occurred near General Hospital. And there's a third attack at a funeral service by a female bomber disguised as a mourner. Children and pregnant women were among those who were killed. There are men, women, and children who were killed at these attacks. And immediately when I saw that, when it said there's a female bomber disguised as a mourner at a funeral, two things came to my mind immediately. One was the females who disguise themselves as helpless females at the checkpoints in Israel who have bombs strapped to them. Sometimes those females, Palestinian or Arab women, are pregnant, or they pretend to be pregnant. But that was the second thing I thought about, actually. The first thing I thought about was, oh my gosh. So I know that our brains like to kind of think that something is out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, right? We think that, or at least subconsciously, we want a problem to go away just because we kind of stop thinking about it. But when those girls were kidnapped by Boko Haram in 2014, those weren't the only set of girls who were taken by Boko Haram, by the way. I mean, that's the other thing, is that was the most popular one. But Boko Haram has taken many young women. The Chibok girls were the ones that were the most popular, that became the most popular and trending. But there are many other young girls who were taken over the years. Without a doubt, and there's other articles that are already coming out, Nigerian journalists are saying this is an unfortunate truth that we have to face. These girls are either being brainwashed or just simply being forced to take part in these atrocities, which is, and I struggle. My heart goes out to my Israeli brothers and sisters right now, my Jewish brothers and sisters, especially my people who are living in Israel, because it's likely that Hamas is either they've killed the children hostages, the young hostages that they have, or they are still violating them, raping the girls that we know that there's still girls alive because they showed us a video recently, or they're brainwashing these children to do their bidding. I remember, I think it was just the next day, or maybe it was October 9th. There's a man his young daughter was taken, and I think that the IDF found her body. Like, it was confirmed that she was killed. Hamas killed her. And though he was sad, his first reaction was, "Oh my God, thank God." And I as a parent, I immediately knew exactly why he did. I connected. I immediately. Why? Because he was saying, I would rather my daughter be murdered by Hamas than to know that she's still alive with Hamas doing God knows what to her. I'd rather her be murdered with at least some of her innocence still intact than for her to still be alive right now, being tortured physically, mentally, and sexually by these animals. His reaction was, "Oh," and I 100% got it. Bayard Rustin said in one of his articles in the New York Times, late 1970s, he warned leaders, particularly black leaders. He said, we need to call out, we need to raise our collective voice and use our moral authority, use the weight that we have as Black American civil rights leaders. We need to use our spiritual authority that has been bestowed upon us through going through, as Booker T. Washington calls it, the school of slavery, centuries of slavery, another century of Jim Crow, all this stuff that we've had to survive, lynchings and all these things. The world listens to us when we hear. I'm paraphrasing. He said, we need to call out Yasser Arafat, who was at the time the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization. We need to call out the PLO. Why? Because if we don't, and he was also talking to the United Nations, if we don't condemn the PLO, if we don't call them out, if we don't put pressure on them, if we don't, and for us other countries, we don't sanction whatever, the terrorism that is happening to Israelis now, and now being in the late 1970s, it will be copied all over the world. And if you can just remember with me, I'll just name cities. Remember what happened in Paris. Remember what happened in Brussels. Remember what happened on September 11th in New York. Remember what happened in the Philadelphia synagogue. Remember, like, the man was, again, you could say he spoke prophetically, or you could say, like I said, gravity. If I let go of this, it's gonna hit the ground. He said, okay, if this country does not get condemned for slaughtering Israelis, killing men, women, and children, stabbing pregnant women in their stomachs with their babies inside, ripping their babies out and parading the babies around the streets while they tear them limb from limb, if we don't condemn that, it is going to activate other people in other countries with an axe to grind against society. So that's what is happening now. So the Chibok girls in Nigeria were taken in 2014. There were other girls who were taken after that. I don't know if you guys remember, after the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, Boko Haram eventually issued a statement. They made a video saying basically, those girls are never coming back. That's what they said. And they've taken other girls since then. They've taken other girls before then. Like I said, so now it's where are these female suicide bombers coming from? Those are the girls that have been kidnapped, who are now women. These girls, it's okay, just do the math. It's 2024. The Bring Back Our Girls campaign was 10 years ago. So if a girl was 14 then, she's 24 now. These are grown women now who have been trapped under the oppressive boot of Boko Haram as sex slaves, as baby making machines, and now as suicide bombers for Boko Haram's cause and whoever else, the Fulani herdsmen and what have you. That is what's happening. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I'll say that's one of the fears of the Israeli people and of parents, especially the parents whose kids are still missing, is that, is my child alive? Do I want them to be alive at this point? Um, and will I see them years from now wearing Hamas gear and trying to destroy Israel? Like that, I can't even. We can't even imagine what that would be like. So no, the issue with the girls taken in Nigeria has not been resolved. They're still missing. They're still enslaved. And as we can see now, and unfortunately, more news is going to come out like this, where it's female this, female that. They are being used now as human pawns for terrorism in Nigeria. How did we get here? We got here because from the top down, from all the way from the Oval Office, all the way down to your powerful and then smaller nonprofits and activism. There are too many of us who are afraid, and you saw the clip of Truth to Power Live. There are too many of us who are afraid to speak truth to power. It's so rampant that at this point, me personally, whenever I see someone who does seem to be speaking truth to power, my first reaction, just in my brain, is like, "What's your angle? What do you? Why?" Because it's there are not enough people who are willing to call out things as they see them. The ones who are, uh, in this day and age, usually don't get the kind of platform they should, and the ones who have that kind of platform don't do it. Usually, they have that platform because they don't do it, right? And that's part of how we got here, you guys. Bayard Rustin is saying the same thing much more eloquently than I'm saying it. Back in the 70s, saying, we can't just not say anything about this. We can't just hello. If Yasser Arafat thinks it's okay for him to do this, what do you think is going to happen to the other countries who think he's a great guy and a freedom fighter? He was already on the cover of Time magazine wearing Ray-Bans, being called a freedom fighter. He was being marketed in this country as a freedom fighter with Ray-Bans on, right? If we allow him to do this, we're sending the world into a chaotic place. We cannot do this. We're in that chaotic place now. And we continue to descend into an abyss because not enough of us are willing to call a spade a spade. That's really what it is. We have to be, guys. We have to be. So, the good news is that we're still here and we still have voices and we can still use them. That's why I'm going to circle back to what I talked about right in the beginning. You guys, if you haven't, I know you support IBSI. If you don't, you join our mailing list, join us on Substack, become a legacy builder, all that stuff. Go to AfricanJewishAlliance.org, join the Substack, stay up to date on the efforts of AJA. We are partners and members of AJA as well. Where they go, we go. We have them where we are, we go where they are. And the work is so, so, so crucial. And in this day and age, it's with IBSI and with AJA, we cannot do it without you. That's not just a fundraising talking point. We really mean that. So for IBSI, for the work of IBSI, the work of AJA, we cannot do it without those who believe in what we're doing and support us, because we are not going to get the support from others. People, and I appreciate the sentiment. They'll reach out to us all the time and say, "Have you reached out to NAACP?" Like, no, we have not. We know some people who work for them. As a matter of fact, a couple of the leaders have come. We had one who came to our event in Harlem, had a good conversation with our CEO. But as a whole, yeah, they don't. We call out the NAACP we've called them out on numerous occasions. for different budgets. Different. No, they're not. They're not going to want to work with the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. No mainstream organization like NAACP or the Urban League is going to want to work with the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. That's just not going to happen. Even if the top CEO founder, him or herself, liked our organization, it's not politically expedient for them to support the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. That's just not going to happen. We get our support from dear quality support from our people on the ground all over the country, partners and everything. But we cannot do it without you. So I'm going to say it again. Go to ibsi.org/donate. Become a legacy builder. If you are struggling financially and you don't know how, that's what Legacy Builder is for. Give a small amount. And I'm asking you, I'm going to challenge you. I had to do this a few months ago, and then again a couple weeks ago. Let's say you have an Amazon Prime subscription. I'm challenging you to cancel that and use that to give to IBSI. You subscribe to Max and Netflix and Disney Plus. Okay, cancel one of those and give that to IBSI once a month. Because I'm telling you guys, it is not our goal and our hope is that by the time Ezra and Judah are in their 20s and 30s, that the landscape has changed and something like IBSI maybe has even a different name, but Black and Jewish work, African Israel work is mainstream and it's cool and it's fine and all that stuff is, some of this stuff is behind us. But right now it's not a mainstream thing to do. So we can't just walk into whatever big name is in your head right now, Black or Jewish or otherwise, and say, this is what we do. And they go, oh, cool, here's a bunch of money. That's just, it doesn't happen. It doesn't. And we know that what we do is contrary for lots of different reasons. As a matter of fact, we have, old friends who sometimes tell us like, yeah, I support what you guys are doing, but I support from afar because, I can't really be seen being associated with you guys. It is what it is. Right. That is one of the hardships of telling the truth, is that there are people who agree with you who are too afraid to say they agree with you publicly, so they distance themselves from you. And some of those people will even attack you along with everyone else just to make sure that no one thinks that we're friends, and that happens. And they'll come back around when everything falls apart, but that's just how it is. So for those of you who are watching right now, I don't know how many people are watching because I can't see the numbers, but I'm hoping you guys are watching. Know that IBSI can only do what we can do with your support. With your support. The demand for IBSI has skyrocketed since October 7th. It went up after the 2021 war, and it just skyrocketed since October 7th, mainly because we didn't really change anything, you guys, at all. We didn't change our messaging. We obviously put out a statement after October 7th. We didn't change our messaging. We didn't change our statement. We didn't change our mission, nothing. IBSI has been doing what IBSI's been doing since IBSI was founded in 2013. We've been around for 11 years, doing the same stuff, digging and posting the truth, calling out BS and calling out whoever, whether it's on the left, right, center, doesn't matter. Black, white, Jewish, doesn't matter. We've been calling them out. Arab, Muslim, doesn't matter. It's just that what IBSI has been saying has been resonating more because, again, like I said before, because now people can see it in front of their faces and they're going, you know what, Pastor Dumisani did say, you know what, Olga did say that, I remember seeing Josh's post about 3 years ago. You know what, I did come after them hard for saying that, but they're correct. And we're telling you guys, there's been a lot more demand for IBSI, both in the Black community and the Jewish community, and just in general in the academic space. People want us to come and educate, come and teach, come and present on all those different types of things, come and discuss, join panels, all that. And that is amazing. We cannot meet all the demands if we do not have the funds to do so. So while you're watching this, take out your phones, scan the QR code. If you're watching this on your phone, I thought about that. How are you going to do it? Go to ibsi.org/donate. ibsi.org/donate. So if you're on your phone and you can't scan the QR code because you're on your phone, go to ibsi.org/donate and give. You can give a big one-time donation, or you can become a legacy builder. We would so not just appreciate it, but just know that you are helping IBSI continue to move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you for this. Tune in next week. We'll be back here Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, same place. I'll be joined by my lovely co-host once again. She'll be sharing with us about her travels, and we'll be talking about some more really important things. Follow us on all the social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Rumble. Join us, follow us, share. And you guys have a really wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.